welcome back, Loony Listeners, to another episode of Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. I'm your first of three hosts, Connor.
I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Ray, rounding out the hosting duties. And tonight we are going to look at a panel-by-panel review of the issue 188 of Moon Knight by Max Bemis and Jacen Burrows. Crazy runs in the family. We've also got a bit of news as well, so sit back, relax, grab your issue, and get your conchu on.
So yes, welcome back, you two. It's a big episode. We've been waiting ever since the first episode of this started for a new Moon Knight series. Now we have the first issue in our hot little hands.
Yeah, we're finally here after waiting for so long, and we have the wonderful Rebecca with us to share it with. How are you going, Rebecca?
I'm going very well. I have a cat in my arms now.
Your hands are full, literally.
She wants to talk. She said there was a cat in the issue, so she wanted to come and have a look. It's just crazy. And we still have to say, though, that we say, we've been waiting for a new Moon Knight for ages. Moon Knight has not done badly this time round for not having a long break between runs.
And if you remember, and if I think I remember correctly, it was about the same length of time between the Bun and Lemire issues.
Yeah,
so we don't have much to complain about.
Yeah. Considering everyone, you'll hear a lot of people refer to him as not a mainstream one of the heroes. Doesn't do too badly for being in the consciousness, which is great.
Yeah, he's always seems to be up there. And just the other day, I saw Marvel's most underrated character, I think, in the universe. Is always kind of is always kind of in the periphery of.
I think it's probably because there's nothing quite like him in the Marvel world. Even when you compare to Nighthawk and stuff, it's not.
On.
Yeah, I know, but you know what the comparison would be. But even say Nighthawk and the other, it's just not the same. There's something so complex and nuanced about him that people love to play with him in terms of creativity as well.
And they've had a slew of really good creators as well, which hasn't hasn't done any damage to the character. So kind of very lucky that Moon Knight's had all these from Ellis to Lemire has just been we keep on lauding about Lemire, and so tonight we have the introduction or the maiden issue from Max Bemis, which everyone's been anticipating. Before we get into it, though, just overall, what was the first kind of impressions?
My first impression was I liked it a lot more than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why. That sounds very negative. But I guess I always go into these things, after coming out of Lemire's run, you're just can I possibly love a comic more? And the answer's no. So therefore, how am I going to react to something totally different? And the glimpses of the sort of previews of the art, I'd been it's all right. It's fine.
Yeah.
Something I'm not used to that style of art. And then came out of it going, I love the art. So that was really, I did a total sort of 180 on the art. And just feeling very confident we're in for another good run, I guess. Was my main takeaway. Is I liked this. It was coming out and going no, I really liked it.
And how about you, Connor?
I was the same as Rebecca. I still had faith this was going, Bemis and Burrows had a good handle on Moon Knight, and I enjoyed the issue. But, I still enjoyed it so much more than I was expecting. I think Bemis's writing, I love his book Centipede. I love what I've read of Fool Killer so far, but the writing in this issue was so dynamic, it was so smart, it was so eloquent, and Burrows' art, the previews, just didn't even show half of Burrows' talent when it came to what he drew in this issue. So getting the issue was just a whole new experience. It was crazy.
Yeah, I totally agree as well, especially with Burrows. Look, the previews that we got were tantalizing and were good. I didn't expect it to go up another level actually reading the issue, and I was surprised at the level of actual detail that Burrows put in some of the pages, which was just fantastic. I think also Matt Lopez, the colorist, really kind of brought everything out even more. And yeah, just going back to what you're saying, Rebecca, as well, I'd have to say Max Bemis and Burrows would probably have to have the hardest gig in the Marvel business, following up from Lemire and Smallwood. So,
I think Wade Samney probably have a slightly tough run, but they're Wade and Samney, so and they so like I think it is a tough gig to go into Cap after the Hydra Cap storyline.
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely.
But in a different way, because
yep.
Mark Waid's written very successful Cap before. They know the character, they know what they're doing. There's no problem selling up Samney's art. So like, I mean, it's difficult in a different way. But I think you're right. I think this was following the last Moon Knight run, which was shocking. I mean, it would be akin to going and following King's vision, honestly.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
in like, what do you do with the character now? And they've found something to do, and hey, you know, I'm all on board.
Yeah, I mean, and right as well as you're saying, like Wade and Sumney are a bit of a super team in themselves, so they had their reputation, I guess, to kind of help them along.
Exactly.
Bemis, he basically had the worst X-Men and Fool Killer really to on his CV.
Both of which are great,
Marvel-wise. Yeah, both of which are great, but you know,
they're not really as high profile in any way.
No, not at all. So you could argue that this is one of Marvel's kind of gambles, and Burrows as well. He's done a lot of very different sort of things. Is this his first Marvel venture?
So,
do we know?
I believe so.
Wow, because he's really such a talented artist. Really enjoyed it. So first impressions, they speak volumes. So we'll get into a panel by panel review very shortly. But first up, Connor, we have some news, I guess.
Yeah, luckily it wasn't just 3 people and their cats on the internet noticing the incredibleness of this issue. So we have a lot of great review sites coming in with their hot takes on this issue. All of it, at least, very positive. You know, not critique free, but there was a lot of hype surrounding it. Our first was from Longbox Shortlist. We had some.
Sorry, I was about to say, this came out like really early. I think this one came out. I think prior to. On the 6th. So it came out before the issue was released.
Damn. Wow. Yeah. And we by the way, we will link these all in the description. We won't take too much time going over this. We'll have our own big long thoughts in this episode, so we'll just sort of crank through them. We have Sci-Fi Wire as well, coming with their sort of list of the new comics to pick up, and they had some of their own glowing praise for Moon Knight as one to definitely pick up for all readers out there.
Yeah. And then we also had one from comicbook.com as well, which actually is quite a good one. It's one of the first, apart from the 2 prior that Connor was mentioning, it's starting to get in depth. So I think this one was actually released post release of the book as well, and we have a few more as well. We've again, as Connor said, we'll put them in the show notes. We have them from Newsarama, and then also from Comics Beat and Comics First, which is a comicsfirst.com, which is a pretty cool website as well. So each of them, I thought they were quite. I think, as I mentioned in the last episode, it was really good to give it a read after you read the issue, and some of it was quite insightful, I think, and not just either slagging an issue off or just giving it just blind praise. There were actually a lot of thoughtful points in them. Yeah,
and all reviews will always have something you don't pick up on. So even if you read the issue, loved it, I recommend checking all the links out. We'll put in the show notes.
And a couple of other bits of there's a just the next one was, unfortunately, I think we all missed out on this one.
Shame.
XM Studios. Yeah. Oh, did you see the price?
Yeah, that's what I'm just looking at.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
There's no missing out on, trust me.
Yeah, it had a snowball's chance in hell with that one. I thought, like, when I saw, like, it was a beautiful statue. Anyway, Loonies, what we're talking about is XM Studios. They released a Moon Knight statue, and this was a cold cast porcelain statue, and each of the statues, there was a limited a number, is hand painted. So very, very, the craftsmanship is right up there. It goes for about I think €990. So it was way beyond, I guess, my pay grade. But happily found out that it was all sold out already. So we have some Stephen Grant fans out there.
Yes, it seems like good for them, and I hope you have so much fun with the model. As in, like, if I had the money, it would be up. It would be one of the things. But no,
I like the way you put it. I like the way you put it.
It sounded more dodgy than I meant. Like, I genuinely
have fun.
Just stand staring and watching. No, honestly, like, for people, I'm people who have. I'm not at all mocking people. People should first of all spend their money on what they want. I can't talk. I'm spending that amount of money on, or more, twice that much on a tattoo at the moment. So, it's a matter of what's important to you, and I know that someone spending that amount of money will at least love it.
Yeah, and it's a really gorgeous looking statue.
I mean,
I think
it's beautiful. I just don't know what these kinds of things are worth but I'm guessing by the fact it's sold out, it's worth the money.
Yeah, I do know a couple of other big statue collectors, and I know a couple of them have like statues they're saving up to buy in 2018 that are going to cost them over 1,000 Australian. So it's definitely its own thing that people do put the money in for, and the quality of the statue speaks for itself. I don't think I've seen. This is up there for anyone sort of half interested in figures, up there with the quality of Sideshow or Hot Toys. Like, check it out in the description. The quality is incredible, but I'm not even sure if I had the money, sometimes it'd be hard to justify it. But I hope someone listening did grab this before it became sold out. Despite the fact it was like a Marvel registered product, it didn't really get any sort of hype on any mainstream service. It seemed like you had to already be following the site to grab it, or you missed out. So I don't know, that was kind of sad.
Yeah. It was very much, like a word of mouth thing. And I think actually we saw photos of it earlier in the year of them actually starting to make it, because it looks very similar to some photos that we saw.
Just the porcelain, yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting, Connor, I know this is probably a really stupid question, but the people that that really do collect this as a hobby, do they collect like comics as well? I mean, I guess if you have the money, you could do both, but I'm just wondering, because statue and figurine collecting can be seen as a thing on its own, right?
Yeah, I mean, all of them are, like, I know a couple of people get it from, like, anime and manga, and a lot of these high-quality figures are usually based on the quality of the figure and then the license on itself. So, yeah, I suppose you do you get invested in one in both. Yeah. It's kind of like you get invested in the comics or video game side of thing, and then if you have the money, you get into the figures, so...
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so I mean, it's a gorgeous looking statue, Loonies. And if there are any Loonies out there who are listening that did pick it up, as we say, please post it up on our group or our page. It'll be really cool to see. We've seen the statue, but it'll be just good to see amongst your collection. That'd be great. The other.
So our next item. Oh.
Yep. Sorry. Go on.
No, I think we're heading on to the same thing. On the success of this issue, Axel Alonso decided to release another preview for 189, which for the Mark Spectorless first issue, we now have a shot of the Stephen Grant personality hanging out.
Yeah, this is it was really cool. Really cool to see again, without the lettering or the sound effects, if indeed there are any. But I really like this, actually. One thing that really stuck out for me, I thought, was the perspective that Burrows did on that top panel with Mark lying in bed. I don't know if you guys thought the same thing, but I just thought, geez, that's a hard angle to draw.
You mean with
someone
the
lying
curtain
down.
looking like the Moon Knight cape?
Oh, yeah, as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
It's really kind of
It's pretty
really
classy.
kind of well done. Yeah, and so Burrows, not always impressing us, I guess. And then you have obviously the visions of his other identities, and the last one I like is Stephen Grant goes into the limousine and he sees in his reflection good old Jake Lockley, the one of our faves.
Yep. It's
But
good.
but nothing. Yeah, nothing really. I mean, nothing really to to pick from this.
But that's what you want from a preview.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true. Actually, and further to that, Rebecca, as well. Looking back on the previews they gave for 188, I was just so grateful for that because except for maybe the one with the mummy, like the full. Although it was like really gorgeous, I would have like loved to have
Had that
opened and read the
revealed.
comic. But yeah.
I can
But anyway,
see why
but-
they previewed that though, to show you there's going to be some Egyptian
Yeah,
fighty stuff.
yeah, for sure. So nothing.
although-
Sorry.
Just one thing I was going to say about that preview is I'm not sure, is it the bun run that kept him in this little New York apartment? This isn't the lavish any sort of mansion for Stephen Grant. This is sort of a small apartment. You can see there's cracks in the wall. He's got a very sort of flat and plain room in this.
I think it might
Yeah.
be. Well, it could even be a hotel, given the bottom left panel.
Oh yes. Oh, good pickup. Yep.
True.
Definitely.
But because you're right though, Connor. Because I picked that up and went, why does he look like he's living in a hovel and then getting into a limo, a stretch limo?
Mm.
So interesting. We will
Yeah.
see.
Could have entered the hovel as Mark Spector, exited
Right.
as Stephen
Yeah.
Grant. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's again, it's just kind of whet our appetite. So interesting, and thank you, Marvel, for releasing that. We also have in our next bit of news another return to a Funko Pop Moon Knight, which is pretty cool. Number 272, we actually get more of the classic kind of Moon Knight in Funko Pop form. So this is going to be exclusive to Walgreens in the US. I did a bit of a Google search. I think it's a pharmacy. Are you guys?
Yeah, it's a pharmacy.
Yeah.
But one of those
That's
ones
really weird.
that sells everything. They do a few of these.
Okay.
It's like I keep wanting to call it a chemist. We're now coming into our different terms for different stores. It's one of those. They have like those massive, like, not Walmart size, but like massive stores. So it's not. And they've done a few exclusives before.
Yeah.
They've done a few of the sort of double packs and things like that. So, but they're pretty everywhere.
Yeah, oh, okay. Because in Australia, Connor, as well, I'm not sure if they have them up your way, the old Chemist Warehouse, which is the big chemist pharmacy for us.
Ours is just called Boots. Like, you guys all have much better. We have Boots, the chemist.
That sounds cool. That's just,
Chemist Warehouse isn't very lavish.
No, it's pretty much on the nose, isn't it? And that's what you get.
Better
It's like,
name than Boots.
but I haven't seen any Funko Pops in it or anything like that. So we're still behind with the US there. We've got to get the Funko Pops in the chemists or the pharmacies. But this is looking pretty good. It's more of a classic Moon Knight. It's a hooded figure.
We're not going to make a joke about how how a drugstore's the perfect place for Moon Knight Pops to be. Come on.
I wasn't smart enough to make that joke. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm not sharp enough
Come
for
and
that.
pick up your meds and buy a Moon Knight.
Yeah. Oh well, that's very apt then to have it there. I'm gonna check out Pop Culture. I hope that sooner or later that they'll all pop up there. I'm assuming like Walgreens it's going to be their first, but I'm sure it's going to be distributed later on, right? It's got to be.
Usually we'll get we might get different coloured versions that are just more available everywhere. Like so there might be a full white one or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And there's a couple of UK places that sometimes get these exclusives, so I'll keep my eye on those as well.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Good. And I noticed it's got the black face under the hood. So I know we had a few loonies, saying whether it should be the black or the white under the hood, because I think the latest iteration in Bemis's run, it's definitely white. And as noted before, white was actually the original. I usually always associate Moon Knight with the black under the hood, kind of like you don't see the face, but but originally it was white. So there you go. And finally we have just a few other articles of the reviews of the issue we're about to go through panel by panel. So as Connor said, we'll put them all in the show notes, and you can read them at your own pace. So guys, I think it's time for Over the Moon.
I think it definitely is.
Right. Well, Rebecca, we have the first issue, number 188, by Max Bemis and Jacen Burrows. Would you please do the honours of giving us the details for the comic?
Yes, it is, obviously, number 188, Marvel Legacy, Crazy Runs in the Family, Part 1. Let me find the... Writer, Max Bemis. Artist, Jacen Burrows. Colorist, Matt Lopez. Letterers, VC's Corey Pettit. And, well, there's an alternate cover by Matt Lopez. Trading cover variants by John Tyler Christopher. Some more variant covers by Daniel Warren Johnson and Mike Spicer. The particular one was Bill Sinkovich. And who else do we need to know? The editor, Jake Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
VC's Corey Pettit returning from the previous run. Good stuff. Glad to see him back.
Yeah.
Yes, he's great.
And Jake Thomas as well. So a few familiar faces there. But the big three of Max Bemis, Jacen Burrows, and Matt Lopez taking the reins for the creative duties, or the visuals and the story. Okay, guys, and Loonies out there, if you have your issues, please take them out. We're going to go panel by panel, page by page with this review. And let's kick it off with, how about Rebecca for the first page?
We're skipping the front cover, though, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we can mention it.
No, we don't. We've
no, okay.
We've all seen
Get out of here,
They're
Ray.
great.
Oh, that cover nonsense.
Fair enough.
Okay. We start off in Ravencroft Asylum. Interesting panel layout. 3 horizontal at the bottom, 3 vertical at the top. A little bit like bars. Pretty cool. We've got a fairly subdued colour palette. We've got sort of lots of earthy colours, I would say. Very bright skin and bright red hair for Dr. Emmett, though. Quite nice cover. So we've got our redheads established. And Dr. Emmett's talking to a new patient. I think it's fairly clear straight away that we're not entirely sure who this is. I don't think there's any there's no sleight of hand trying to pretend it's Mark. No. But although we do know it's somebody who's in the army. There's an incident.
Yes.
And bang in the middle, we have these 2 horizontal panels, which is his eyes they're both looking at each other. So one panel's him looking right, the other's her looking left. He's got very blue eyes and says that he learned there's a God. She's got very green eyes and says, how so? And that's kind of your opening gambit. Is you're going to have somebody a little bit similar situation to Mark in terms of army experience and trauma, and saying he's learned there is a God. And that's, I think, the first page.
I really actually like the first thing that really struck me, I think, was what surprised me with what I said before, I guess, with Burrows having seen the previews of his art, and then seeing this, was that I really enjoyed like those 2 the middle panels that you mentioned of the eyes,
gorgeous.
the close up. They are, aren't they? They're almost cut like animated like, and I didn't think I'd pick this up from Burrows' art. We saw a lot of heavy detail from Burrows, and to a degree a lot of stylization, but with these eyes, they really pop out of the page, I think.
They really do, and it's weird because it's quite a placid colour palette, and the eyes aren't bright, but they still, it's just the shine on them just pops straight away.
Yeah, and maybe a bit of a nod or an echo to we got a lot of eyes in Lemire's run, which we've just covered the whole arc. So there's a lot of evocative looks, with both of the eyes. Also, I guess the red, Emmett's hair, obviously very distinctive, and obviously, well, she's in Ravencroft Asylum. But the other note I just want to say, I loved Bemis's first opening words, I guess, text to his script. He's say, remembering your youth is like looking through a layer of jello. And I just found that really, like, a really good way to describe like a cloudy, hazy, mind that this guy has.
And also sets the scene that this character probably knows about as much as himself as we do, so we sort of know immediately that we'll explore this character throughout, like, this first issue.
Yeah.
And just also say as well, with the faces, I love the incredible expressive facial work here. I love the very sort of, placid, both sort of writing from Bemis for this new patient, but also his face sort of really captures that. There's just not a whole lot of expression, almost very sort of dead-looking eyes, while you can immediately see in Emmett, you can see the interest, you can see her moving forward, her eyes are a bit more focused.
She's got nice rosy cheeks.
She does. She's she could be a little bit hot under the collar, a bit a bit nervous with this fella. This guy's there's been an incident which we'll find out later, but he's not a normal Joe off the street. So so he, as you mentioned, Rebecca, he's revealed that he truly believes that there is a God. And if we go on to the next page, he goes on further to say that he goes on further to speak about the God, how the gods they make the laws of how the rivers run and things corrode and rot, the indisputable laws. And on the top panel, we get Dr. Emmett kind of really, really invested in what he's saying. She's really listening intently, and she wants to know more about his thoughts on this God that he talks about. And she's kind of a bit skeptical, thinking that that all these thoughts that he's had is probably a bit too highbrow for the army bullies who have kind of harassed him at his time in the army. And we get a final reveal with the bottom third of the page, with actually a reveal of the full face of patient 86, and a reveal that his hands are in fact kind of burnt and scarred, and the fact that he had to burn his victims. So similar to the previous page, look, we're still in the asylum, muted colours. The only really colours that pop are Emmett's hair, but this is more of a I guess a little bit more of an exposition on his thoughts or his beliefs.
Yeah, we get a lot of thematic setup here. We both see a little more into this patient, his views, and sort of we get the glimpse of what happened, of why he ended up in this mental hospital. But there's a lot of thematic use of him talking about religion and a god, with what will happen later in this issue. And just a little comment, the hair he's sporting, there's just something about it that sort of screams to me like rock listener or like a metal singer. There's a lot of like
I
main
thought you were going to say serial killer there. So.
No, I think back to bands like, I don't know, like Obscura, and just that sort of really long haircut and the beard. I could just imagine him either rocking on stage or in the mosh pit.
Yeah. I took it actually, his hair and his beard, as a complete 180 to his because we've learned that he's been in the military, which is clean cut and stuff. He's obviously gone far away or been kind of distanced from the military, as he's kind of plummeted into his insanity, and he's kind of left himself a little disheveled.
I had it as a bit more of a sort of a Jesus look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a very benevolent look on his face, doesn't he? Like,
yeah.
Like if you compare it to later on, obviously towards the end of the issue, Burrows does a great job. He looks like a nice guy, a guy that he's saying I had to burn them, which is a horrific thing, but he doesn't look like he's showing any remorse or any anger towards them. So,
no, and I think that's a clear signal you're supposed to know he's not mentally healthy. Because he looks so placid and so kind. He looks so kind in that last panel. And he's saying, I had to burn them. And you're like, all right, clearly we've got someone who's not right.
Yeah.
We are in no way supposed to sympathise with this guy.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of reminded me a little of the... have any of you watched Backdraft?
Yes, not for a long time.
Yeah? Remember there was that scene, Donald Sutherland. There's a scene, Donald Sutherland, and he's an arsonist. And he is going to be released, I think, from jail, and they're going through, whether he's been, what do you call it? Whether he's I lost the words, whether he's cured, of his urges. But I think Kurt Russell then just spends like 2 minutes. He goes, hang on. Before you release him, let me just ask this. And he's saying it so calmly, right? But then he asks him, so what do you want to do? Let's call him Donald. What do you want to do, Donald, really? What do you like? And he just says with a little smile on his face, I'd like to burn them all. I'd like to burn. And it's quite chilling because he says it like there's no evil in his eyes. He just says it because he's almost at peace and he's a little bit of joy in it. And it's the same kind of thing here, I thought.
And it's a very intense look at religion too. This sort of well, I'm just trying to think of a term that escaped me, but it's very brutal in the way that he looks at having to prove yourself to your own God, with the way that basically he had to show he was stronger with his faith by killing them, but by the way the reason people hurt him is because he didn't really show enough faith and they had more faith, and so to show his purpose in life, it was he had to burn them, and it was that's really sort of shocking. And if this was something we knew was grounded in reality and there won't be a Moon Knight twist coming later, that this would be something incredibly just shocking. Yeah,
we're definitely Bemis is definitely venturing into like the dark corners of of the world, so it's a good little intro we get.
So onto our next page, we leave our little hospital to find Emmett working hard in the nearing the dead of night, I imagine, as the cleaner is going about his business. We learn the patient's number, stating that she's finding this job a little fun because patient 86 is fucking fascinating, and that's and that's sort of a fun little indicator of Emmett's character as well. And then we get to learn a bit about our patient 88. We see a photo of him joining the army with, as Ray pointed out, his very shaven hair compared to what we've seen, and that it comes across that he was very much bullied in the army, that forced him into his insanity, saying that basically telling us that he was bullied and force-fed urine in a canteen again, and we know that that's definitely not the extent of what he's been put through. And then as Emmett muses about our little patient 88, she recalls a certain patient she had once before, one Mark Spector, although she doesn't infer, just cutting to the final panel in a weirdly sort of going from large to short 6-panel grid. It's really interesting, sort of focusing on what we need to know on each panel of Mark Spector, and the fact that Emmett hasn't quite let that case go, and it still sort of even haunts her.
I like it because the panels aren't even as well.
Yeah, they're slightly off, aren't they?
Yeah. They're disjointed.
Although horizontally they're almost kind of aligned.
Yeah, horizontally they're pretty good.
Yeah. I'd like to see a bit more of Hugo, the cleaner. he gets one line. I wonder if he turns into a supervillain or a superhero. He's he's working late as well. But we see Emmett. She's really intrigued by this guy, and to the point where she says, sometimes I get him so fully that it's like I want to have a beer with the guy. She's working late, she's studying him hard, and we know from this as well, it's revealed that, as Connor mentioned, she has a fixation on the Spectre conundrum as well. So she's kind of really an all or nothing person, isn't she? She really dives head on into a job. We see the last two panels were pretty cool, only because it does like a 180. It has her looking at the board, and then you see what she's looking at. And while she does that, Bemis kind of does a parallel between Patient 86 and Mark Spector. You know, lunatic joins the army. Said lunatic freaks out and ends up spiritually reborn in a near-death experience. Sound like anyone you know. So it's really clear now that she's drawing parallels. And in case you haven't picked it up yet, there are parallels now between Mark and Patient 86. Yeah.
So then we get the insert credits.
It's really old-fashioned. Did you
really? Yeah. I'm not entirely. I'm not sure I love the text on the logo, but I'll live with it.
Yeah, and the dodgy, like the purple and
There's
the
some odd kerning in there.
Yes.
Sorry, that's very font specific, but the N and the I and the G in night seem to be very strange bit of kerning there, because the N and the I.
Is this the original logo? Oh, sorry, Rebecca.
I think so.
I think it's very close to it, if not.
It's very close to it, yeah. With a little bit of a modern twist.
Yeah. A bit sharpened. A bit of a purple tinge and stuff. But then, then we have a hard change to a party in a fancy apartment.
I really like this little segment.
Yeah, no, I do. I think it adds a lot of character very very quietly. And there's some really nice touches. So we've got Emmett. They're all in party hats. They're all obviously like professionals of Emmett's age or thereabouts, maybe a bit older. There's one guy with grey hair, Jewish guy there. Can tell by the head covering. So a mix of professionals, but there's your little hint at some sort of Jewish role. She's eating quietly while they're all sort of talking over her. So I think the assumption from us is she's thinking about what she's been doing. They're giving this funny story. There's a lot of banter, and that's actually written really well. And then then you go to her internal monologue. She's still thinking about Mark and the similarity with Patient 86. Yeah, and
as Ray said, very sort of all or nothing.
Yeah,
this case is sort of with her all the time.
Yeah, she's clearly using Patient 86 as her way back into her obsession with Mark. By the similarities. And one of the guest notices said you've drifted off again. You're still stuck on the hooded leotard guy. And she goes, no, I'm just enjoying my duo of lamb.
It's a very weird way of saying it.
It's a really weird way of saying it. I think it's quite cute. I think it's showing the sort of social class because lamb's quite expensive, etc., etc. And she's saying, and it's not a leotard, it's some kind of weird Kevlar-based stocking, perhaps showing her level of obsession, because you cannot tell me that that's not the kind of response one of us would make if somebody made a joke about a comic character we liked. You'd like, well, actually, it's not this.
Exactly.
It's not adamantium, it's vibranium.
Yeah, that's it.
Which would be the clear example. And then the guys say, you've got to let it go. You're in a room full of the country's best MDs, one of whom treats Brad Pitt. You owe the Ivy League a finer legacy than that loser. Oh, poor Mark.
Yeah.
That's what this podcast is for, Mark. I love you.
So we learn a little bit more about her then, that she's also Ivy Leaguer. And hanging out with so possibly some of her ex-classmates or people she knows professionally. But it's definitely a professional dinner.
Yeah, and to me it's like she's not she's not like a loner, because you know how she's very work driven. It's not like she lives a very solitary life. So
Right.
here it immediately establishes that
She has a
social
friends,
clique. Yeah, and how close she is to them, we don't know. But she's in this party, like and
Yeah, I
she's
mean,
having
close
dinner
enough
with.
that she didn't choose to cancel.
You
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like she still went out and she's still enjoying it. She's thinking about something else, but she's paying enough attention to, like, jump in and say, don't talk to me like that kind of thing,
Yeah. And I think Burrows again, like, I think he draws Emmett really well. Like, just her face, like in all 1, 2, 3, 4, all 5 of them, like 5 of the panels of the is that right? The 6 panels.
Yes.
Really, really expressive looks. Each of them, like, if you look at it, has a pondering
He's very
around.
good with expressions all round, actually, and the colouring's beautiful. Like the shadow under the collars, it's just.
Oh yes.
Yeah. It's really nice, and like giving them all slightly different skin tones, and considering
the little party hats.
Yeah. Even in the second panel where you've got all the like food on the table, it's just very nice. It's still fairly muted colour wise though, but she's wearing a red dress now as well, so that's popping a bit more than when she was in her clinical stuff. Yeah,
again the red. Yeah, and I wonder if the faces, if there are any like Marvel staff members there amongst the party. You don't know.
Not Jake Thomas. I can tell you that.
Oh no,
because he was he was in Iron Fists, so I have a vague idea of what he looks like now.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Oh,
they made the good-looking kid bully was Jake Thomas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's so cool. I'd love to be a staff member. You get yourself put in the comics somewhere. That was it. Sorry?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna add before we moved on just how much I love Burrows' character work here. I think every character's expression is so interesting to look at and just so detailed. Like, Burrows obviously put a lot of thought into every way he thought about Emmett looked in each like panel, like which way she was looking, how like where her focus is, and just I've noticed in this very sort of quieter, not so much action driven issue, like the real sort of interest was for me just really sort of just watching how like her facial expressions worked and how that like relayed the thoughts on the story. I think you could really just go through and analyze every single panel with every character, especially Emmett, and just sort of see like both what's happening and how that's reflected in her face. And that just really sort of drove this issue for me, even in a page full of just dialogue, that was never boring because every character was just so interesting to look at. And having, and that can be a lot of faulting for a lot of writers, even, when people complain about, I do love Bendis, but when people complain about how much text there is on one page, I feel at times is that because sometimes artists don't give characters things to do while we're looking at them just talking. That never felt like a problem in this issue.
No, it didn't at all. And we touched upon it in the last episode as well. Like, I had an inkling because, like, again, and I think it's what you were alluding to, Rebecca, with it was kind of similar-ish to Fall Killer. I was assuming that Bemis would be putting he'd be not short on words, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's true, but never did it feel like too overloaded with text. And as you say, Connor, as well, it still gives scope for Burrows to actually, work his magic. He's giving a lot of information, Bemis, but you only have to look at this page and see Emmett's expressions, like in all of them, and he conveys it really well. So we have the next page, which will be familiar with most loonies. It's the preview page that we saw, one of the first preview pages of 188, and we get it with text now, and it was released later as a preview with text. But it is indeed Dr. Emmett at her apartment or home, and she's brushing away, and she's a little peed off at the people at the party, and beautiful. Again, I like the writing from Bemis here. I anger brush away wine stains.
Yeah, that's close to writing lyrics for a song.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. Revealing my natural shade of coffee. So that's just, it actually tells you a lot about her as well.
Yeah.
Like, so she obviously drinks a lot of coffee. So she's obviously kind of wired and works. You assume that she works then a lot. And then we get, familiar territory of her in her bed with the first appearance of one of Larky's friends.
Yeah.
Her little cat, just kind of snuggling up with her while she is not really resting. She's in that pose that has her kind of massaging her forehead, and we get in the final just half of the page, we get her in profile, just deep in thought, and ironically saying, who cares about that freaky, son of a gun anyway? and through her closet we see it's actually her who cares about him, because she's got a lot of the paraphernalia and pictures of one Mr. Moon Knight. It's a pretty sparse, a little darker page, just color-wise. But nothing much really to pick up here other than the reveal at the bottom of the page. A pretty sparse apartment.
That's pretty obsessive behaviour.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So sleeping next to the cape of a vigilante. That's a little.
I know my room's full of superhero stuff, but that's a little bit creepy.
It is a bit creepy. Is she bordering? She's got to be bordering then on maybe she's becoming like a patient. I don't know. Because her drive seems so like the page before. She's, off thinking deep in thought. And here it shows again that she's got all this stuff. She's really a committed person.
Yeah. Who knows?
Who knows?
So yeah, as we cut back to the next page, we return to Ravencroft Asylum, where we go a bit into the medical side of things when it comes to Emmett talking to patient 86 about sort of his own mind and what led him to doing the things he did. We have a lot of sort of fun with these panels again. That sort of really disjointed, and there's some sort of fading over the top as we see two vertical ones up the top of the page, the second vertical panel almost overshadowing the large square box below it, and then another small panel to the side as we end on, which overlaps the square panel, and the third vertical panel which overlaps that square panel again. It's sort of very...
It's the first overlapping we've had.
Yeah. And it's sort of fun, and sort of what we saw just with everything when it came to this sort of art paneling be very sort of distinct and disjointed, like disjointed in its own stylistic fashion. But we see as well that we see Emmett sort of talking a bit about what seems to be comrades of him in the army. Well, not comrades, but people with him in the army.
No, I think that's more. These are serial killers.
Oh, really?
These are famous serial killers. So what she's doing is she's drawing parallels, and this is a very interesting thing about. She's raising the issue of, he's raising about insanity and evil, and if you murder someone, he's saying, look, I've killed people. Doesn't that mean that I'm crazy? And she goes, no, it's not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're crazy that you kill someone. And she puts these references. This is Son of Sam, I believe.
Yeah.
Ed Gein, who was kind of popularized during the Silence of the Lambs film. The Buffalo Bill was based on Ed Gein. And he used to wear, it's terrible. He used to wear skin on his face, kill his victims. And Fish, I don't know, but I'm assuming.
I'm just looking up now. I'm just looking at it. It's really interesting. Albert Fish, American serial killer, who's also known as the Grey Man, the Werewolf of Wisteria, the Brooklyn Vampire, the Moon Maniac, and the Boogeyman.
Oh
He
wow.
was 1924 to 1932 was his killings.
Oh god. What did he drink blood or something or?
Yeah, that sounds
No,
like possibly
apparently
what.
killed by electrocution.
Oh.
Oh.
I don't know, but the Moon Maniac, come on, that's good.
Like
Keep that one.
Moon Mania, I know. Well, what a nod.
Yeah.
But these are very real people. And
Yeah, wow, okay, I didn't know that.
sorry, Connor, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, that was good. Yeah, I didn't even know that or pick up on that at all. So I'm very, glad to know about that. And yeah, that's sort of the crux of this page. She's talking about how when it comes to his illness, the fact he obviously grew up in terrible conditions and was never treated led to what he was doing. And she's almost sort of, stating that what he did, was obviously evil and villainous, but there was still very much part of it that wasn't who he was, but, what his illness sort of made of him and the treatment he never had and the consequences of that when it came to living his life now.
Yes. What I get from this as well is just looking at it from a layout point of view, and we're a fair 6 pages in. Burrows' panels are a lot more, I think, conservative than Smallwood's and or Lemire. Apart from that slight overlap, we still get either a banding, horizontal banding through, or kind of regular kind of panels. Not to say that there's anything bad with that. Just I guess an observation that Burrows doesn't lay too much emphasis on it, and I guess maybe because it's the nature of it. Like with Lemire and Smallwood, there was a lot more of a surreal and a whacked out side of things, and that was reflected in the panels. With Burrows, it's very matter of fact. And we get here with Bemis, there's a lot of information here that Bemis is giving us on this page, and it goes a long way to explain patient 86. And so I like the fact that in one of the main panels here, you see him listening intently to Dr. Emmett, and you see the 3 different versions of him as a little kid, as him in the army, and as him as a juvenile. How all his experiences in his life so far have culminated in him being who he is. And what he ends up doing.
Yeah, so we see that he was obviously went from sort of bad state home to bad state home. It seemed he was traumatic childhood. He was probably suffered a lot through that. Probably a lot of bad experiences with people on the street or in those state homes. We see that obviously led him to doing some things that got him stuck in junior as a young adult, where he, developed his bipolar as well, and then seemed to almost exit from there to go to the army, which is where he is now.
Yeah. Really a nice level of detail when he was a teenager. See, that's a
he
another
enjoys drawing that.
kind of thing. That's So we go on to, I think, the next page. Rebecca?
Oh, sorry, I lost track of who was doing what. So she rubs that off the chalkboard, stroke blackboard again, depending on which country you're in. And she stops.
She's a good drawer, shall I say?
She's not bad at all. She's not bad at all. So while she's talking about his need to control things, she starts talking a bit about the things she's seen that have helped other patients, and she draws Kurt Cobain, Hemingway, and Beethoven. So that's all interesting, creative points to pick. And she says those with bipolar disorder, if you can temper it, you can have intense inspiration and creativity. And she says, I want to help you. He goes up to the board, sort of zooms in on Kurt, cracks a joke, says he's more of a Foo Fighters type guy. She comes out with a Foo Fighters lyric. He gives her this look, and the expression on the final panel face is, again, priceless. It's just kind of my joke didn't land.
Those 4 expressions at the bottom of the page are pretty cool. I think they kind of tell the story. Yeah, again, another 3 real-life characters, Kurt Cobain, Ernest Hemingway, and Ludwig von Beethoven, all massive creative figures, and ones that Dr. Emmett kind of gives us examples of those that can temper their disorder and still produce intense inspiration and creativity. Now, there's a couple of things here I thought. So she starts talking about bipolar disorder. Now, are we kind of veering away from DID and multiple personality disorder as well? Bipolar disorder is something totally different as well as a mental condition.
But maybe that's what she thinks patient 86 has.
Oh, okay, right.
She's talking about
so
him.
She's still kind of okay. She's still fishing around. Yep. Okay, cool. Because I noticed that she said that, and she says it on the previous.
It's come up a couple
you develop
of times,
bipolar. Yeah. Okay, cool. Because I don't know, there was just a bit of a loony watch on the group, and there was just talk about.
I agree with some of what they were saying about the phrasing.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah,
she's still clearly diagnosing him, but maybe he already had the diagnosis of bipolar. So that's kind of the known thing, because that's obviously not the thing that leads you to burn people. So
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
I say this who somebody went to a psychiatrist for setting fires.
Oh, right,
My personal experience with this whole story is that this wouldn't be linked to the bipolar. But so maybe that was already diagnosed before he went in the army.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. And then that makes sense because the 3 figures that she quotes, of Kurt, Ernie, and Ludwig, they all. Well, it's believed that Beethoven had bipolar as well, and Kurt, and So, and there was the other thing that the one of the reviews I read, which is one of the links on the show notes, and I spoke to you, Rebecca, just quickly off air before this. How I guess one of the critics was saying, there's a bit of a sensitive issue here. Like she's kind of, I guess, giving as good examples of people with bipolar, Kurt, Ernest Hemingway, both of whom though committed suicide as well. So, I don't know. It's a bit of
and there is Beethoven had a suicide note. He just didn't kill himself.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, that was Tchaikovsky.
Was it? I think.
Yeah, Beethoven. He died of.
No, I know he didn't kill himself, but they did find a suicide note that he had written.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, okay. Well, so I mean, So that again, those 3 then that she cited. I don't know, maybe in poor taste. I guess that's what the critic was saying, of using those 3 as examples of those that can temper their bipolar disorder when, in reality, kind of didn't really go too well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
maybe there's anyone she can draw. Yeah, it's maybe they're not the best examples.
No. But I do like the turtleneck on Hemingway. I think that gave it away straight away.
I like the Ernie.
Yeah, the Ernie.
Yeah.
It threw me just for a second. Going Ernie.
I wanted to make Kurt and Ernie jokes, but then she added Beethoven, so it doesn't work.
Oh, that works. Kurt and Ernie.
It doesn't work because there's also Ludwig.
No, because he got him with his terrible hairdo. Yeah. So a bit of humour from Bemis with the quote from the Foo Fighters. Do we know what song that is from the Foo Fighters?
I think it's called Breakdown.
I can look it up.
Okay, well, I will be listening to that after this podcast, just for fun because I do love pop culture references.
And if there's anyone who's going to make Breakout, it's from a song called Breakout.
Breakout,
not Breakdown. My bad.
It's Emmett's way of trying to connect with him, but she fails horribly. And then we get a switch to, so she's had the conversation with Emmett, and we turn the page, and so she does a bit of research herself, and so she's onto this fact. Okay, well, there are some parallels between patient 86 and Mark Spector. Mark, obviously, he fell with Khonshu as a kind of device to deal with what he was going through. So she goes through a ancient Egyptian museum, and we see again very kind of standard panels. The top third is just a full horizontal, and then we have the middle, which are three vertical kind of equal panels. And as she goes through, she sees the statue of Khonshu. And interesting here that she said that Mark Spector may be legally insane, but he was never crazy at all. So it kind of shows that there's a certain amount of investment, I think, that Emmett has with Mark Spector. And further on, as she goes, she kind of starts to question the definition, I guess, of crazy. You know, if Mark is legally insane, but if you look at priests who hear the voices of their lord, or shamans, or writers of the Constitution, you know, if these people are, you know, quote unquote inspired, or, you know, hear something from a higher being, you know, are they, you know, equally classed as insane as well? So she's kind of, I guess, justifying and trying to make sense of what's happening to Mark, and by that she can kind of, I guess, then assess and maybe liken that to patient 86. So as she walks through, again, quite muted colours actually, very earthy, to go with all the artifacts. She walks through, and at the bottom, we get a full shot of her face as she literally closes her eyes to try and imagine stuff. So I like the level of detail here, I guess, of Burrows. He's actually filled it enough, because I've noticed that a few of his other panels, he does really rely on the close-up with the face, and there's generally just a wash of colour at the back. But, what did you guys think of this?
I think that the fact he managed to get into the museum things that genuinely look like hieroglyphics from afar is pretty damn impressive.
Actually, yeah, very good point.
In terms of some of the detailing in the top panel and the next one down. Like, they don't look like scribbles, they clearly look like hieroglyphics.
100%, because like you... remember, like, I don't know, some of those comics in the 90s, and some artists just draw generic.
It
like
would
you
just be
can
scribbles,
tell. Yeah, there was no research done. It was just like, oh, this is what stereotypically is a... Yeah, so it's good to see that Burrows has done his homework here.
Yeah, you know, this is nowhere near the craziness that and the detail, like the craziness of the events that Small would put so much detail in the crazy Lemire on, but by no means, even in this in this quieter moments of this issue, does Burrows ever let up his own sort of detail. He's very invested in drawing this book and just making it as fleshed out a world as possible.
Yeah, it's very well done.
I like her calling Khonshu Mark's main squeeze.
Yeah. She there's still a little level of informality in her, which is good. It's good. So as we go across the next page, Connor.
Yeah, it opens as she closes her eyes. She sort of breathes life into the Egyptian gods, and sort of, as Khonshu envisioned Mark, she's envisioning every other god as almost sort of as a deity they are, and it opens with probably one of the top 3 favourite panels in this issue, with the glowing colours by Lopez on Osiris, and we see Horus hanging out, judging a loud sort of touristy family. We see sort of the quiet of Imhotep.
Yep.
Made famous in the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies. Yeah. And
then as this sort of closes off the page, she very much comes to a silent realization in one issue where she sees Ra as sort of the answer to her own prayers when it came to almost finding a connection and a deity for patient 86.
Yes, and then you get the stunning panel. I mean, it's the whole page. It's the whole page of Ra just glowing. It's the most colourful, sumptuous page we've had so far. The background's just charcoal, so it's not the deep black. It's charcoal. Yeah. You've got Emmett in the foreground with her sort of muted suit, but looking back. So you've only got her back, the hair in a bun. Her red hair's even more muted than it has been, and just the statue is literally just glowing gold.
It's bloody awesome.
Just beautiful. And like as you flick through a comic, and you just come to this and you're just like, what? Stop.
And I've got to say, actually, that page, that reveal, and as you mentioned, Connor, the one on the page before when her and Osiris are together, on the digital copy, that just really popped out. Like, it's still very impressive in the single issue as well. But I read it first as digital, and going from that panel of Emmett closing her eyes, and then seeing that with Matt Lopez's color is just and then fantastic. And then to turn that page again and you get that full spread of Ra.
It's just gorgeous. And then the only text is, I see Ra and it all makes sense.
Yeah. It's such a brilliant panel.
It's interesting because like this whole dialogue that she's having with herself in the museum it's perilously close to her descent into madness. Because what is actually, I mean, because it's kind of, yes, she's drawing on the Mark Spector case to try and see if she can give patient 86 some control, but because she's so obsessed with Mark, she's gone to this Egyptian mythology and she's talking about them as if she truly does believe. Yeah. Like, you know, which most probable medical professionals wouldn't be quite so into this, and when you get to this, I see Ryan. I mean, there's this massive pause because it's the first full page spread we've got. It's so glowing, and it's just like, and even the phrase "it all makes sense" is literally like someone finding God.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's almost tragic because, like, let's face it, this whole issue, it all anchors around Dr. Emmett, so she's the main character in all this. And we can actually, as you say, we can see her slowly. There's a slow descent, I think. She's kind of losing touch a bit more.
Definitely crossing a line into this will work. Yes, I believe in this. You know.
So, something a little sad. Sad and tragic in it, and we will know what kind of happens towards the end as well. Just kind of going back as well. I love how Burrows has really made individual the gods. Osiris, Horus, who's my favourite. He's got like just an owl face, just a scowling face, and Imhotep as well. All three of them are very different, and I hope we see them later on somehow.
So do I. Yeah.
Because they look so well developed, and then you have Ra, who's got this eagle face, like a very, just sleek kind of Rolls Royce of gods there. But yeah, I can't say any more than what you said, Rebecca. It's a stunning panel, and very well articulated by Burrows.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm not sure who we're up to.
You.
So after that, kind of like a mid-issue reveal, we kind of brought back, and so Dr. Emmett, she's got a plan now. Things are a little clearer now to her. So she's come back to patient 86 back at Ravencroft. She's got a picture of a conventional image of Ra, and she's slapped it down to give to him, and he's going, well, what's this? And Emmett explains to him that this is Amon-Ra, the sun god of Egyptian pantheon, and she's obviously linked it to to the fire, to the burning. He's the sun god. And what I find funny with this, in the middle, again, a little bit of humor from Bemis, the two panels in the middle, again, you get the expressions. He has a look at the picture, has a bit of a think about it, then he goes, I like his funny hair. So, he hasn't really taken in the gravity of what she wants Ra to be for him. And so she goes on to explain to him, okay, so there's Ra, but not only is that, Ra is connected to his son, I guess his kid.
Crazy runs in the family, heckin' sons of bitches, welcome to it. The archetype.
That's it. Yes, exactly. Kind of nailed right on the head. So she tries to tie it back, and she ties it back to Khonshu, which makes sense for her because she's dealt with Mark and his Khonshu infatuation. So she gets to kind of bundle it all together. Yeah, I'm not sure. Not too much really to talk about layout-wise and panel-wise here, you think, from Burrows, but just a good setting off point here. So we got Emmett on a mission now, and she knows how to kind of treat patient 86.
And then we cut to our next quite text-heavy page, where in our first panel we see Ra hanging out with his son Khonshu in his dapper suit. I'm not sure whether whether I just don't know my Egyptian mythology, and they also have museums where Khonshu's in that fancy suit, or that's just a little cute thing for the readers. But yeah, this is a big page for a lot of reasons. It really talks about a big thematic linking where we see that she discussed that in many cultures the sun stands for sovereignty of masculinity, logic and raw power, and she describes the differences between Khonshu's representation of the moon and Ra, that Ra sort of resents sort of the world becoming so passive, and that the sun and the culture surround it, and that sort of interpretation resents change, resents that, the changing of a working, established society, and almost sort of losing that raw power they have, while Khonshu is the redemptive power. Mark Spector and almost sort of more represents femininity and sensitivity, sort of changing to that redemptive changing from what you were, say. That, sort of seeing the faults in the old ways and changing while we see that, the sun culture doesn't want to change that. And Emmett makes the connection that something happened when he was younger, some form of abuse that sort of underlies the old ways and what sort of made patient 86 who he is. And as we come to our final panel, we see two separate instances of patient 86 from his bullying squad of being tied up naked, and then a shot first person of some sort of abusive father figure going to hit him as a young child, as we see 86 reaching back into his mind to see that he's on the right track.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is basically the toxic masculinity is bad page.
Yeah, it's a great
which is so kind of on point for a lot of what's going on in the world at the moment. Yeah. That it's interesting, and I wonder if that's one of the things that drew Bemis to want to write this story, because it's so, the effect of how bringing men up to not show their emotions and to think they have to, be dominant is affecting things, and sort of interpreting that through the Egyptian mythology is kind of really interesting. But this one was the first page where I thought the writing, I kind of went, I get what you're doing here. It is the way somebody would talk about sort of psychiatric things, but it's just so. This is what we're saying. It's alpha male. Maybe you need to be a bit more in touch with but she's not saying that, unfortunately. I mean, I'm not sure how great a therapist Dr. Emmett is. I think somebody raised it in the group that this is all her fault, and I do not disagree with them that she is veering way off path here, but her interpretation isn't wrong about this is the problem of toxic masculinity.
Yeah, she it was raised in one of the reviews as well, how her methods are quite questionable, and what she does is not. But what I found as well, so the first half of the top half of the page, it was a really great way of using the Egyptian mythology and stuff. So I get that, and then so how did she tie it into him repressing some sort of memory? What, am I missing something there in just the connection? So, because she all of a sudden says, something happened to you when you were young, I believe what you're hiding from yourself was most likely some form of abuse. So, what you mentioned before about Khonshu, and him being the greatest of gods first by being more in touch, being more in touch and all that, being more sensitive, and Ra being against that, and as you're saying, the toxic masculinity of the guys.
I don't know. Maybe when she says the Ras of this world get angry, they burn harder, about their own impotence. Maybe that's what she means about how he's felt being bullied.
Right.
Because otherwise I can't make that jump either, and maybe she's just making a jump and just flipping back to, and now we'll talk about your therapy.
I think, oh, sorry, Rebecca?
No, that was it.
I was saying, I think she's very much inferring here that Ra is a way of seeing what he did, but Ra isn't so much the helpful hero for Patient 86. This sort of doesn't seem to infer that, Ra is someone he should look up to, but someone that, because I think the reference to his childhood is that the change that he never saw is that, he was beaten and suffered as a kid and grew up that way, only to sort of find himself suffering the same way through,
military.
Without change when it came, to the military, and just sort of connecting, that as he got older, and I guess sort of very much what he suffered, he was older, and he very much noticed what was happening, that when she talks about burning harder and resents becoming passé, I think this was the time when the understanding of Patient 86 was that he wasn't passive anymore in the current thing, and that, he did burn harder, he finally didn't accept what he was being faced with, and and turned on his on the people who were beating him. I get as well that there is something about that, because that does seem inherently like change, while Ra represents hating change. I don't think it is probably as clear as maybe Bemis saw to it when he was writing it. Possibly there was something he connected in his head that we aren't, and that's
I think actually, from what you're saying though as well, and from what Dr. Emmett says to Patient 86 at the end, I think then that maybe she is trying to align him with Khonshu.
I think she is. I mean, that's because she says that the page before is that your answer comes, Khonshu's your answer.
Yes.
Forget Ra, go for Khonshu, but he's sort of latching onto the wrong one.
Yeah, so it's a bit confusing, because you tend to think that Ra is the one that, because obviously with the big reveal of Ra, the statue, it all makes sense. So there's a bit of confusion, I guess, in Bemis's writing. You tend to think that Ra is the one that you liken Patient 86 to, but I think she's actually trying to liken him to Khonshu as the sensitive one, and maybe Ra being being the abuser, and his abusers, and probably
Rebecca makes a good point as well. The fact that seeing it sort of more spelled out to me that Ra is the one Emmett's trying to divert him from to be Khonshu, but we see from the narrative standpoint and what Bemis is doing that more and more, and his actions that Patient 86 is attributing himself to Ra, which is the wrong way, and we see that take its turn.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. Actually, yeah. That's great. It's great to do in these panel by panels. I'm kind of getting more and more. So that's cool.
So then she takes him back to his room, which is very plain. We've not seen his room before, I don't think. Well, it's just a bed, chair, table, standard, nothing that looks like you could damage yourself. And she's leaving him some books. And she says she tells him the story of Mark Spector, how a confused, mentally unstable boy drew on the figurative power of the moon to justify his nature. Mark's transformation into a hero called Moon Knight, a role model for the bewildered. So that's clearly she does see him as some kind of role model. She gives him all her notes and research. Again, probably not the best thing to do.
No, exactly.
But done for all the best reasons, and a lot of it is Egyptian mythology books.
Patient confidentiality.
But all the stuff of the time when he was under her care, And she says that patient 86 seems to get it. He seems to click with him, which you'd expect. He sees that Spectre was him. He wasn't just insane, but he was really immersed in living myth. And you've got these very, again, kind of earthy tones to start off with, the sort of peachy greens and beiges. And then the final panel is blue. It's blue washed. Yeah. And it's patient 86 crying while a picture of Moon Knight in his hands and sort of touching it with the sort of text, "It was never the moon's fault that it shone so brightly." And another beautiful little, gave me goosebumps the first time I read it, honestly.
Yeah, a silent tear down the cheek.
You think he's kind of getting it. Like, this is showing him that there's a way through his insanity.
Yeah. It definitely alludes to the fact that he might be on the right course now to healing himself in a way. But yeah, no, it was a. Sorry, Connor. Any thoughts on this?
Not really. You guys covered it pretty well. I like throughout this issue the focus on always having patient 86 burnt hands in the frame.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like a nice little connective and always a reminder of sort of
who he is.
What he's been through, what he's done. Yeah,
his sins. So. This is what I found a little bit of a jump. So we turn the page, and I'm lucky. I get the preview page again. So this was another of the preview pages with the word balloons in there, and we get Dr. Emmett dressed in like a lavish white dress and corset, and she's in a room full of mirrors or frames, but without any pictures or reflections, and she's looking at some documents. And she gets distracted. Again, panel layouts are pretty conventional. And then she looks to her right, and from the right, as she starts to scream help, we get some really nice detailed zombie mummies or just mummies. And they kind of come out of the woodwork or come out of the door, and they start to overwhelm her. So she actually runs out of the door, looks out of the room and into a corridor, and it's like an endless perspective of this corridor. So you're starting to get a sense of, and from the jump of it, like, this is obviously not of the reality. We've got to assume it's a dream. And from the right, we see the flapping of a cape, and it's none other than a Moon Knight. And we get that glorious full page reveal of Moon Knight in battle against the mummies, and a little preview into Burrows' art for the gory and the graphic. We get beautiful. Him ripping it. It's very nice, actually. He's just ripping a head off, ripping a torso. And there are all sorts of mummies kind of vying for him. Oh, sorry, Connor, I've actually gone to 2 pages. Sorry.
That's fine. It's just a 1 page to gloss over, but I adore this suit. I mean, there's something about this suit. I'm not sure why I've clicked with it so much.
I really like it as well. I really, really like it. I love the white face.
It's great. Oh, I don't know, and just the white background as well. So the only dirtiness you get is from the mummies. It's brilliant. So, and as we turn the page,
who's taking this now, Rebecca or I? All right, me. We get a nice we had a lovely sort of side shot as a you can see sort of Emmett's ripped costume. This costume being quite interesting. It very much seems in her own head she trying to imagine herself as a Moon Knight type figure. But as the blood stains the walls of a Moon Knight, blood stains the walls and a certain Moon Knight, he's very sort of looking down and scowling. Yes. And then as we see, he begins to take off his mask in the panel beneath, and then a very horrifying, pale, demonic teeth looked of patient 86 as Emmett screams no, as if this patient 86 is gonna like rip her throat out or something. And
sorry.
I'll just say quickly, the last 2 panels are horizontal as we cut back to her waiting up swearing into a very bewildered cat. Who's now
Swearing
apparently
at a
white.
cat. Yes,
What?
change the colour.
Yeah, I'm not
So
sure there is
scared.
black or white.
Maybe she has more than one.
Bemis on
Black.
Twitter.
Oh, that's
true.
More than one. True. Yeah,
And then,
because it definitely looked darker. Yeah.
It did.
And then
but
she
there
blames her
it'd have
nightmare.
to- Sorry, I was going to say, it's hard to get the colouring of cats sometimes. But you're right, it does look black in the previous.
Yeah.
Although that was a lot darker room as well.
It
This
was.
one seems to have more of a light source.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a full moon.
Da, da, da.
And then she blames her spooky nightmare on cookie butter before bed. And what's cookie butter? Is that cookie dough? Or is that like a specific butter?
I have
It
no
just has, like,
idea
chunks
what
of
cookie butter is.
Yeah,
I'm looking it
I
up.
assumed.
Go indeed.
I assumed it was cookie. I assumed it was cookie dough, but kind of please, yes.
Oh my god, it's gross.
No
Cookie
detail.
butter is a food paste made primarily from Spector's cookies, am I right? Crumbs, fats such as vegetable oil, condensed milk, or butter. And sugar, the ingredients are mixed until it becomes spreadable by nut butter, peanut butter. Ugh.
Oh,
Spreadable like
I mean,
cookie
we
dough.
do have one here called Biscoff, which is kind of malt cookies, but
Oh.
it made into sort of no, not appealing. This is an American
I'll
thing.
pass.
Let's all just pass it off as an American thing, and all of the American
Yes.
listeners can tell us how nice it is. But it sounds kind of gross.
Yes.
It sounds a bit
It is
like
a little-
that awful marshmallow spread.
Yeah.
I had that the other day. It was. Oh.
Oh, did you? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
We'll stick
gosh.
with our Marmite and Vegemite, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They
I
can
love my
have
savoury.
Peanut butter
They
is
can
as
have their
risky as
cookie
I'm gonna
butter
go.
and their marshmallow fluff.
Oh, it must be a guilty pleasure. It has to be a guilty pleasure from Dr. Emmett because, it just doesn't sound appealing at all. But what we get here also as well, I guess, is the first very obvious horror element in the comic. I think
true.
from the beginning onward, things have been kind of traveling kind of well, kind of based. In reality and in discussions and stuff. And this is the first shot of that terrifying Patient 86 under the Moonlight hood is the first glimpse at Burrows just giving us something just totally shocking and scary. Yeah.
Shows the tone of the narrative as we hit the next page with Rebecca.
Yes. We go straight back to the asylum. And back in a work sort of environment, and she's sitting at her desk again. Well, she's sitting at a table, and she's talking to patient 86, trying to get him to remember who he is, because obviously we still also have this mystery that we have no name for him.
Yeah.
So she's sort of like, I need you to remember who you are. He's saying, I know who I am. And she's going, yeah, that's great, but if the allergy of Khonshu is helping you get some resolve, you're still going to need medicine, you're still going to need therapy. And he's like, what do you mean it's just a story? And starts talking about it as if it's real. Like, I suppose Ra never let his wrath rain down on his errant son. That's everything you taught me was an illusion. So you can slightly see that he's taking Ra's side there by calling Khonshu his errant son. And
He is.
talking very much like this. Like, and then he kind of shuts her off. He just said, let's talk tomorrow, Dr. Emmett. Your company's always a pleasure. Like, I'm kind of done with you. It's something they play on in the Dracula story when they're in the asylum there. And they're just like, I'm done with you, go away. I mean, like, I don't read many things, so I'm drawing from my other things I've read that are written about therapies going on. But it's kind of like, whereas before he's been very willing to listen.
Yes.
But now the minute she's taking a stand he doesn't entirely like, which is that it's an allegory.
Exactly.
He's kind of like, I'm done. Your company's always a pleasure. I'll be spending the afternoon in meditation. And behind him you have all the Egyptian, like, mythology pictures stuck on the wall. The Eye of Horus, picture of Bast, various other ones, scarab beetles, Ankhs.
Yes. There's a cat there as well.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's the Bastet one.
Yes, the best. Yep.
Yeah.
And
crocodile god whose name I can't remember.
That Amut.
I don't know, but he's there. But anyway, and I'm just feeling really bad for like my my lack of. But again, the detail's great. They all look like you can clearly tell who they're all meant to be. Like if you went up to pull up Wikipedia on Egyptian mythology, you could identify them all pretty quickly. And if we're talking panels here, we've got some that are out of sync again. So we're going to that slightly unhinged. Like you've got the first two, then the next two are shifted a little bit, but the whole background of the entire page is the last panel. So it's as if the last panel is the full page and the others are sort of inset on it. So that's kind of the world he's built. And he's looking out into the sun.
Yes, exactly. I was about to say, he's basking in the sunlight. So he's starting to really come under the spell of Ra, I guess. And as you mentioned,
sort of holy light.
And as you mentioned, Rebecca as well, Emmett really tries to. She's still kind of on the side that she's trying to kind of curb him towards the Khonshu. The allegory of Khonshu brings you resolve, and he's just nothing of it. He's now made a decision, and exactly as you say, he doesn't really need her anymore. He's made up his mind, and he's just got to line his ducks up, just to to completely understand what he's going through. But he's a lot more sure of himself. Again, Burrows, I think I always thought here with the in the middle section and on the right, when he's looking, your company is always a pleasure. It always looks like, I always imagine that Burrows has drawn patient 86 separately, and it seems almost like superimposed onto. He must have drawn also Emmett in the background. I don't know, because it just seems a lot lighter, and that might be Lopez trying to kind of imply that the sunlight's on him. But he is definitely a lighter shade than Emmett in the background. Yeah, but it's great stuff. And actually, also, before we go on as well, so did you think, what were your thoughts on that dream sequence? Because we were at Ravencroft before, then we get this quick dream sequence, and then we're back at the asylum. Did you have, I had a little, not an issue with it, but I found it a little, maybe that's the idea, a little jolting, that it just came out of nowhere, that she was in the dream, and it was very short. We're only talking 3 pages, and then we're back. Did you have that impression at all? Or?
Yeah, it definitely jolted me out of what I was reading. But I kind of figured that was the point. But you're right. Yeah.
But I don't know, almost ill-placed. I don't want to say it, but like it seemed timing-wise, it just seemed, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know if I needed it.
That's I guess what.
But I liked it. Like I love the art. The art's gorgeous and it's interesting. But I don't know if I could have just done with even the last page of it.
Yeah,
just her waking up from a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, because those 3 pages could really be slotted in, to me, really anywhere. Like, between her interactions with patient 86, it didn't seem like it belonged here, but then
I guess the only thing that places it here is because we've already had her at the museum losing herself a bit in the mythology, and seeing Moon Knight as a bit of a savior both for her and patient 86.
So it could have really been done. Could you say right after that really good page of the shot of Ra?
I think. I disagree with that, because I think the takeaway from this dream sequence is a thematic shift in narrative. The horror reveal of the devilish, scary patient 86 represents that the narrative really goes downhill from here. Like, as we've already read the issue, this is the part where everything goes wrong. This is the part where patient 86 aligns himself more with Ra and turns really from Emmett. And I agree that, like, I loved it, and it was obviously 3 pages to get to that point, but I feel like there was possibly, maybe even could have condensed it down to 1 page, that sort of, maybe with a bit heavier a layout, could have done all of that in 1 page.
I mean, it seems harsh to say it, because they are beautiful pages, so it's like...
They are. Very beautiful.
But maybe that's her subconscious saying that things are going wrong. Like, maybe it's her knowing that things are going wrong, and you know, that, yeah, the having, I mean, and I think Connor's right. There's a narrative warning for us, is that this is turning into horror now.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I mean...
But I don't disagree with you. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, as we'll get a few pages in, I just had a couple of other thoughts as well. But no, for sure. No, I agree that it is kind of like a little window into what is to come. So, yeah. We'll get to that in a couple of pages. Just in the next page. Okay, so this next page. So she's had that conversation with patient 86. And she needs to dig further into his past. So she goes to the military hospital, and just a quick shot of her going there with the sign Department of Veteran, looks like Affairs. And she meets up with the doctor, and she has a conversation with him, and he works at that hospital, and he says, and she gives him a glowing kind of review, like, you know, he's treated patient 86 and says, yeah, he's a good fella. You know, he's a very warm guy, and so she just talks. She just says, "Trust me, I know his eagerness." She agrees that, you know, he's trying to heal himself, and then he kind of confides in there, saying, "Look, you know, strictly off the records and all that. I've seen a lot, but you know, he's such a good guy. Anyone would have hurt those. You know, he justifies patient's 86's actions of hurting those men, saying because anyone would have hurt those bastards for all they did. So we get another little window into patient 86 in this page here.
Well, there's another little point as well when he said they couldn't keep him there because he joined under a forged alias.
Oh yes, yeah, true.
Which means that even the name the army had for him wasn't right.
That's true, yeah.
So really,
the mystery of him.
So there's a mystery there.
Yeah. Oh, that is intriguing. I wonder.
Which I didn't notice until I just reread that, and I'm like, oh,
yeah.
We really don't know who he is.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't notice that until just then as well. Yeah. So, wow. I wonder if it will ever be revealed. But this page, I think, is pretty standard as well. Again, just Emmett doing a bit of investigative work, trying to get a bit of info on him. So let's go to the next page.
Yeah, in what a talk sort of showed what Emmett was thinking about patient 86. We get a whole new look into patient 86 because as Emmett leaves, she gets a patient shouting at her to wait, in a sort of showing that he's disheveled with a hole in his sock, and he asks whether she's here about the nameless one.
Yes.
And he's very distressed, saying that they won't listen to him. He was serving time over there, and that it was impossible. They had him tied up naked, but he somehow managed to start a fire with his hands bound, as we saw in that panel before, when he was looking at his past. And as he's dragged away, we see that Emmett gets a bit of a text message to show that she needs to get back to Ravencroft now, as something big has gone down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, loved the close up of Burrows did on this maniac's face. Desperation.
I love the two
there.
orange panels.
Yeah, those were real.
Yep.
Standout.
They
sort
pop
of
out, yeah.
That's the word.
Yeah, and again, like the close-ups on the eyes with them, and he's dragged away. But yeah, it's a little insight in stark contrast to what we saw on the page before about him being a genteel sort of fella.
Mhm. And then back at Raven, I get the really nice one, right? There's a nurse showing Dr. Emmett into a clearly bloody door room, and she's saying, like, Emmett's got the internal monologue saying, was everything she did for nothing? I believed I can make a difference. Mm-hmm. Here I am again, at the whim of a raw elemental power of insanity.
I love that line.
Yeah, the nurse is letting her in, saying we found him. We immediately restrained him, so nobody else besides Nurse Hayworth could be hurt. Also, there was no other way to retrieve her nose.
Oh, gosh.
And interestingly enough, in those two panels, I think, from my eye, we don't have straight lines anymore around the panels.
Oh, yeah.
You're right.
So
It's starting to fray.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's slightly jagged edges.
Wow.
We get, obviously you can see patient 86 is restrained, he's hunched over, Emmett's like looking in shock. There's still all the pictures on the wall, all the hieroglyphics, but now they're overlaid with symbols painted in blood of Ankhs and Eye of Horuses and scarabs and other little hieroglyphic-y things. And and she's like, and she's like, why, damn it? And he's like, patient 86, who looks now proper, totally has lost himself. When I revealed myself to her, she didn't believe.
Yeah.
And
This
looking
is,
more and more like the dream version of him.
Yeah. He doesn't look as placid or as human as he did before.
There's certainly some life in those eyes and face now.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're entering Burrows' wheelhouse here. He definitely knows how to draw sinister kind of looking
and
people.
His beard is full of blood as well.
Oh yeah, who knows what he did?
Well, clearly, clearly they had to get her nose back from him. So
yeah, oh, it's truly terrifying. And this is So I just wanted to again go back to the last couple of pages. So we're speaking just about again. I think with I think the way Bemis has written this. When I first read this, to me it was such a like bang bang bang. Those three pages were so 3 different pages. I found the pacing really kind of hard to latch onto. It was, to me, it felt almost too quick. I can almost say that, it would have been great if there were a few more pages in between this. It seemed that there was a lot more to kind of, I don't know, tell. Either that or there may have been a bit of a rush or an obligation, it seemed, from Bemis to try and show a softer side of patient 86 when Emmett's talking to the doctor. Try to get your empathy, even more so, and he's trying to kind of emphasize that. But then a couple of pages later, he's just gone total oddball, with the blood and the straitjacket. I don't know. I found it quite, again, disconcerting, the pacing of it. What did you think?
I thought that the last time we saw patient 86, he was dismissing her and said he had to meditate more. No, not meditate more, was he? He was saying, I'm spending the afternoon in meditation. From him jumping that to going full on killer or blood painter and nose bitery, I can kind of see that. I'm not saying that because he's obviously he's rejected her. He's going to go off on his, whatever path he's going off on. And I think the need to go to the Veteran Affairs medical facility was to get us, not that he was the more placid side, but I think was to get us that thing about his name. And then to drop in the guy saying, how could they have been set on fire if he was tied up?
Yeah. Well, that page is the only time that we hear that he... that he didn't burn them through conventional means, that it's... I mean, we kind of known that through the previews, but it seemed that it was dropped there quickly just so that would make sense of it later on.
I think we've kind of had clues of it. When you see the picture of him flashing back to the abuse, he's tied up naked.
Yeah.
So, and she talks about him being force-fed however many canteens of urine.
Oh yeah, definitely abused, but no supernatural powers.
No. But I think actually it made a connection that I hadn't made. Is that
You're right.
The flashback shows him as tied up. No one's actually said how he did burn them. So logically, I don't even think about it. I'm just like, he burnt them, and then but every picture is kind of showing him being held down, I guess, to be made to drink the urine or tied up.
Yeah.
So how did he do this? And I guess we're all assuming he just got up in the night, poured some petrol over someone, burnt them somehow. So that's your first sign of some supernatural dealings, I guess.
Yeah, I guess maybe being spoilt from the preview images of I think one of the issue covers of the Sun God, of him, you know, wielding fire and stuff. So in the back of my mind, Patient 86, because he's, I think I called him a bearded burbler kind of last episode.
Yeah.
So in my mind, that he always was going to have this sort of power, but it was just when they were going to reveal it, and it seemed like it hadn't been told or spoken of up until this point, and it seemed like, oh, we've got to quickly kind of fit it in there.
Yeah, you see, I thought that more we would see him come to have Ra come to him in the same way as Khonshu comes to Mark. So I guess I saw it as like it hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen. Yeah. And this is more saying, maybe it happened all along. And
right. Yeah.
And this whole thing has triggered it in him that he remembers or something. I don't know. It's like it just gave. I guess it didn't feel as disjointed for me as say the nightmare sequence did.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And how about you, Connor? Did you were you shocked as both of us as well at this reveal of the page of him looking quite sinister?
Yeah, definitely. I think I definitely get rereading it what you're saying, but in the first read that didn't sort of I don't think I really noticed it. It was I like the sort of last reaffirmation that he is a good guy, only to see the mystery that, you know, something's wrong and that Emmett's done wrong. And yeah, I'm really in half minds about it. I think it could have been definitely sort of spread out longer, but I still kind of like the sudden sharp turn and the sudden, you know, mystery of a page only for the truth revealed to be, you know, a bit later. Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to sort of put my finger on it, which is kind of a shit answer, but
oh, that's all right. Yeah, no, I mean, I just thought that the leap was just so big. But again, I guess we're dealing with an insane person here, so it's hard to kind of justify pacing. You know, when someone can just at a flick of a switch just go, you know, and I guess, you know, that might be definitely what Bemis is aiming for, this lull into a false sense of security with this guy being so kind of understanding and warm and wanting to heal himself, and then this shock of him just totally drenched in blood, and it's like, it was a real shock. So so if we go to the next page, we get more of Burrows' sinister looking Patient 86.
God, what a quick change from warm face to
yeah, just snarling teeth and shadowed eyes, and Emmett is kind of pleading with him, like she's in tears. She's saying she wants to know, who are you really? Because as you mentioned, Rebecca, this guy is a complete mystery. And she thought she understood him. She thought she read him. Like she said earlier in the thing, sometimes I feel I can have a beer with this guy because she just seems to know him and think that she can read him so well. So she basically says in bold, from Corey Petit, who are you? And a terrifying look on his face with the blood. He goes, you of all people should know my teacher. Call me by my name. Say it. And we get this final affirmation that Emmett has kind of misread this guy totally.
Yeah.
By thinking that, she kind of calls him tentatively Khonshu. Because that's what she was thinking he'd be aligning himself with, and he just drops his head back and has a bit of a sneer, and then we get the first sense of the sun godness. His eyeballs start to fire up, and he says, "Khonshu is nothing next to me." So terrifying stuff. Any thoughts on this page? Or I see a bit more of the fraying around the edges of the panels there. So again, a conservative way. Burrows is starting to fracture. Parallel with that with Smallwood's and Lemire's run before, things would start to go upside down and triangular and inside out. But this different sort of insanity has more of a horror element to it.
Yeah, and then as we as that sort of final affirmation, we get the massive sort of big supernatural change when we get a full panel page of Patient 86 bursting out of his restraints and his clothes in just a full inferno. As an Emmett sort of reacts, sort of trying to guard herself against this massive swathe of flames rising from him.
Yeah, we're not short of splash pages. This is the third one, isn't it?
And then the next page is another interesting use of panels. They're getting smaller.
Oh,
yes.
Yes.
They're
sort of
ever so slightly.
Yeah, so like very slightly each. It's hard to explain, but if you imagine them all getting slightly smaller on a diagonal, so it becomes more and more claustrophobic as you read it. You see Patient 86 emerging from this big looks like fiery monster because of the perspective, but still human-sized. The flames are sort of spreading throughout the room. Emmett's clothes are on fire. She's saying, "Oh God, oh God, oh God." You're getting more of him as a sort of naked human rather than flaming thing. I wanted to speak to you before I go. I have to take leave of you now. And she's going, "What are you? Who are you?" He's saying that whatever made me the way I am is irrelevant. You brought me purpose. You showed me that I am and has always been a god. And then, so that's all, you get all of those with the flames, and every panel in this is very orange. And then the last one, you get Emmett's face in complete horror, the flames reflected on her glasses, her hair's now come out of its bun, and she sort of calls him by what he is, Amon-Ra.
Yes, the realization just hits her. And you see that the nurses in the background as well, they're all friggin' engulfed in flames.
Yeah.
So it's not only just a show of power with the fire, he's killing people, and it's quite, it's quite terrible. He's on the warpath here. And yeah, it's a great page.
But his face back to clean. All the flames have cleaned him off. No blood on him anymore. He's back to talking quite placidly again. So
I was thinking as well, like, because that big splash page, I know it's silly, but the first thing I thought was the Human Torch.
Yeah.
I thought, like, is this guy like is he a mutant, or is it, or because he's had this ability before, and he's only linking it now to the sun god Ra, right? So he could very well be or an Inhuman as well.
Yeah.
Don't know. Oh yes. So next page, we get him with the burning eyes and a pointing finger at, and we get terrifying text here from Bemis saying he's very sure of himself and he's very aggressive. Khonshu will bow to me after I crack his spine and peel the skin from his body and pluck his eyeballs from his skull. He will bow to me. So. He's on a mission as well, and he knows what he wants to do. He wants to overturn Khonshu, who we heard previously. Khonshu was considered the greatest god of the gods. So there's obviously a one-upmanship here, and Ra wants to be seated as the greatest of the gods. And as Emmett goes up in flames, we still get thoughts from her. As she's dying, and she has a quick memories of things kind of piecing together, and the images that we saw previously of him naked, being bound in the army and taunted by his fellow soldiers, and when he was young, being abused, we see that possibly in reality he had actually combusted his tormentors. Both as a young boy and as a soldier. So this is how, and she's realized this is how he has burnt them all, not through some, pouring of petrol, as you say, or some other thing. He's got this awesome power at his disposal. Predominantly all orange here, and panel-wise, it's again starting to be a bit more disjointed. There a bit more angles are introduced. We've got the frayed edges. And similar to what you mentioned, Rebecca, before, that the large images at the bottom seem to continue up through the background. So pretty
Lopez's
pretty good
color
stuff.
on the file is
Yeah,
amazing.
it's gorgeous.
Very good, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
such a turn.
He keeps
And
it
it's
looking.
something-
I mean, it keeps it looking really dynamic, which can be very hard
Mm.
Yeah,
to make
and it's
it
something
look like
that he'll
it's
have
burning properly. Yeah.
exactly, and he has to be on his game because I think with the Sun King, there's a lot of flames up ahead.
Yes, I think so.
And Connor, you have the honor of the final page.
Yeah, as the firefighters arrive and the ambulance puts to put out the flames, you realize that one of the doctors there realizes there's a survivor. And she's talking to the survivor. Ma'am, listen, we're going to get you out of here, but you're going to have to hold on for me. The doctor calls for support. She's this lady is obviously on her last bit and needs to get in an ambulance immediately. And he asks her to try speaking for me. Can you breathe? She says, "I believe," very quietly. And then the burnt figure of obviously much like Dr. Emmett, sort of just absolutely
it's horrifying.
terrible. Saying that she said, I believe," and then somehow manages to almost shout and scream that as a smiling Amon-Ra walks away from her into the night, away to start his war war against Khonshu.
It begins. I like the "it begins" instead of "to be
That's a great-
continued" that you normally get, for comics.
It's a nice, great touch because what we've got essentially is the origin of, at least, of this big bad for Moon Knight. So it certainly has begun. And what a terrifying look. I was really sad for Emmett, actually. I was really liking her throughout this whole issue, and I had to kind of re-look at the page before and make sure that it wasn't her in the flames, although, it's pretty obvious that it was. I was trying to make sense that, could she have, has she gone? Is that just one of the nurses or something?
I didn't feel that sorry for her, though. I'm like,
Really?
No. I'm going to come out as the mean person I am. But I was like, she was a bit of, she didn't really read the situation very well.
No, she she
I mean, I'm
misread it
not
all.
saying she deserved what she got, because I don't think she did, but, I like the character, so I hope she does, come into it again. So I would have been sad to lose her, but I think that, if you are the person who inspires your previously placid patient to start eating noses and setting people, causing chaos, then maybe there's a little bit of a comeuppance.
Oh, no, absolutely. She's a lot more sympathetic than she was shown in Lemire. She was seen as the out-and-out, I guess, villain. So there was a bit more empathy for her. But yeah, you're right. She was deeply flawed. But it just gets me to see that second last panel, just the look of her. Oh my God, she's just it's truly terrifying. And she ends screaming, I believe, and she starts laughing maniacally. So she has totally lost it.
I mean, and I hope her cats are okay, if we can go back to the serious things.
I'm hoping that she has an automatic feeder or something that allows them to be
sure
fed.
her awful her awful Ivy League friends like cats.
Do you think she'll be invited to another dinner party? Or
I think she might invite herself to one.
Oh gosh, I would like to see that. So, Loonies, that ends this first mammoth chapter in Bemis's run. Oh gosh, what an issue. Oh my gosh. I think I'm just looking. I've ruined the cover to it. I've just been holding onto it so tightly.
Good job you've got 5 copies, eh?
Yeah.
That's it. Fair enough. Yeah. But wow. So and also there's a little bit at the end. Just the primer pages that we saw earlier. Just a little recap as what Moon Knight is all about.
Which introduces a whole new way of Mark dying that doesn't align with either the original of what we've seen in Lemire. He was apparently shot running into the temple and died from gunshot wounds under the statue of Khonshu, which we've never seen before, and makes me wonder. I don't know.
Yeah, another retelling. Yet another. Yeah. So I guess we shall give. Well, how do we go with our Crescent Dart ratings?
Take it away, Rebecca. I believe.
I'm going 9. I think we can get better out of them, so I don't want to give it a 10 straight away. Like I think there's a perfect issue coming.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think Bemis said that was in Scare Factor. He gave it an 8 himself.
Mm-hmm.
Connor, what would you give Crescent Dart ratings?
I'm thinking 4.5 out of 5. I think for the issue it did it super, super well.
So what he's basically saying is 9 out of 10. Just
yeah. Exactly.
And just sort of, I love this issue. I think the art and coloring is amazing. I think Bemis writes very smartly, very eloquently, and he just seems such a natural fit for writing comics, and this incredible story is crafting. But yeah, as Rebecca said, this is the prologue. This is the first chapter of a larger novel. Obviously, it blew me away for what it is, but what's coming next has me even more excited and will probably, blow this one out of the water.
Yeah, it was a pretty impressive issue, and I'd have to, again, I would give it a 9 out of 10 Crescent Darts, 4.5 out of 5 Crescent Darts as well. Just generally, when I read comics as well, if it's an enjoyable comic, I'm pretty liberal, and I usually give it a 4 out of 5. This one I'd have to bump up a little bit more, but yeah, I'm like you, Rebecca. I don't want to give it the full 10 out of 10. It had some room to improve, but it also is the first issue, so it is setting up a lot of stuff. And I found it very cool how Moon Knight actually wasn't in it, and we got to actually look at these characters.
Interesting.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that at all, and just having more of an insight into Patient 86 and Dr. Emmett. So it exceeded my expectations, but it actually also surprised me as well. So there you go, Loonies. That's an even 9 out of 10 all round from all three of us. If you haven't picked it up yet, please do. It's still available in many different versions. Also available on Comixology as well.
And they sent it to a second print run. So.
Oh wow!
Yay.
Wow, that was quick.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. So fantastic stuff. Get on it. Well, that's it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for spending time. I noticed. I know that you were under some time restraints.
It got cancelled mid
podcast. Okay.
So don't worry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much for hanging around, and hope it's
always a pleasure.
Such an interesting voice for this podcast, and your everything, all your own ideas and everything you bring to this.
Yeah, it's absolutely awesome. Connor, we have our next phase. So we've got a bit of a wait, I guess. Now we're concentrating on Bemis, so it's just the Bemis run we're waiting for. But in between then,
yes, we are going to be going back through the entire library of Moon Knight's history for new readers and old, for people to get reacquainted, to discover the classics, to see how Moon Knight progressed over time, and just sort of as our original classic review. So to kick it off, we'll be taking to his first appearance, his first story in Werewolf by Night, issues 32 and 33. I may not be here next week, and most certainly won't be here the week after, but hopefully as well we have a Moon Knight Legends figure review coming soon, which will be exciting to do as well. So yeah, just throw that out there as well.
Mm-hmm. It should be pretty cool. We'll try to get some guest narrators as well, but those issues should be good. And this was off the back of a suggestion from one of the loonies, Keith. So thank you, Keith. And it's a great idea actually to go through chronologically all of Moon Knight's appearance. So it's a big undertaking, but hey, why not?
We can do it.
We can do it. Next segment, Spectacle. I just for shout outs, what I wanted to do, so we gave a panel by panel review. I wanted to shout out to one of our loonies, Joel T. Lewis. He's one of our dedicated loonies on the Facebook group, and he also writes a blog on Nerds That Geek. It's all about comic books, and he's a big Moon Knight fan. And if you'll just indulge me, I wanted to read it out for you. We'll put the link to his blog as well. He's written a ton of stuff, so fantastic reads. But this was his view on Moon Knight. He said, I thought I would never love again. I had honestly convinced myself that nobody could fill the void left by the departure of Jeff Lemire and Greg Smallwood from the Moon Knight series. I was sure that no matter how good Max Bemis and Jacen Burrows' version of the Jet and Silver Avenger was, it would feel like a shadow of the former series. Now you can say what you want about Marvel misunderstanding the trends of the comic industry. You can speculate about the impact of an industry titan like Brian Michael Bendis transitioning to write for DC. You can even take issue with the whole philosophy behind the newest Marvel Legacy and Venom Universe events. But reader, rest assured, when it comes to Moon Knight, Marvel is firing on all cylinders. Say Anything frontman and budding comic book storyteller Max Bemis and Avatar Press regular Jacen Burrows pulled off a gutsy and spectacular first issue of their Crazy Runs in the Family arc. Bemis's first issue focuses on the mysterious origin of the newest addition to the Moon Knight's Rogues Gallery, a villain called The Truth, from the perspective of Dr. Emmett, the therapist we met in Lemire's run. While Bemis addresses Emmett's obsession with Spectre and his unique neuroses after their interactions in the previous series, Moon Knight himself is absent from the issue and only appears in a dream sequence. Now the dream sequence is outstanding and terrifying as it depicts a horde of mummies foiled in their attempts to attack Dr. Emmett by a Moon Knight who turns out to be the Truth in disguise. But it's a pretty risky move to open a brand new Moon Knight series without the title character appearing at all. In this case, it was a risky move that paid off. By depicting Dr. Emmett's obsession with Spectre and detailing how she uses him as a case study for trying to help her other patients, Bemis managed to put together an origin story for the Truth that acts as a dark echo of Moon Knight's birth. Dr. Emmett's misguided attempt to provide her mysterious new patient with an Egyptian god metaphor to cling to as a stabilizer the way she thought Spectre did with Khonshu leads to the birth of the Truth. It's almost the neurological equivalent of scientists trying to recreate the super soldier serum that made Steve Rogers Captain America and creating other superheroes. Emmett's introduction of the Egyptian mythology as an anchor for her patient backfires, and instead of mirroring Spectre's progress, the Truth chooses rather violently a more extreme path. This is a villain origin story so well suited to Moon Knight and so unique that Mooney's absence from the pages of the first issue doesn't diminish it in the slightest. I have to apologize, dear readers, as we embark on this second Moon Knight series together, because barring some major misstep down the line, you're going to be subjected to another series of reviews from a gushing mess of a fanboy who was lucky enough to turn his reviewer's gaze on Moon Knight during the character's second renaissance. Bemis has thoroughly impressed me with this first issue. His writing is a delicate balance of playful and poignant handling. Emmett's practiced bedside manner skillfully in one panel and doling out insightful interpretations of Egyptian mythology in the next. Artist Jacen Burrows is no slouch either. In this first issue, Burrows presents us with his take on Khonshu, Ra, mummies, blood-stained asylum walls, Moon Knight himself, and a whole lot of fire. His work is excellent, and a page-sized depiction of Moon Knight fighting off the mummies in Dr. Emmett's dream is one of my favourite moments in Moon Knight artwork, period. This is a great jumping-on point for the character, and I cannot recommend it enough. I can't wait for the next issue. Until next time, geek on. So thank you so much, Joel. That is a fantastic review.
Mm-hmm.
It summed up a lot of our points, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
I did note that he did mention Patient 86 as the Truth. Is he onto something?
I think I still think so, since because of the Hebrew connection, I'm still voting for Emmett being Truth, being the Truth. So I would not be surprised. Yeah, I think that's exactly where and how we're gonna see her again.
Oh, okay.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, yeah, fantastic. Yeah, that actually does work well, and I'm glad that works, because I really did love that, Rebecca.
Yeah.
That was a really good connection. So thank you again, Joel. Any other shout-outs there?
Yeah, I should probably point out that I'm recording on the Immortal Iron Fist podcast tomorrow. We do a similar thing, but maybe a little bit less professionally. But it's good stuff. It's we're going through the current Iron Fist run at the moment, and at some point going to also look at Immortal Iron Fists and talk Defenders.
Yeah, the current run is really good. I'm really enjoying that. Connor, you've got that as well?
Yes, I do. So I haven't decided whether I'm gonna drop it or not. It's a great series. I'm just juggling out my pull list for the coming year, but I've loved everything I read so far. It probably has like the best action scenes in comics currently.
Yeah, it's amazing fight sequences. That and Defenders both have incredible fight sequences for Iron Fist.
Yeah. And I love the team up with Sabretooth in the current run.
Yeah, it's interesting because
it works well.
The first podcast of theirs I sat in on was the original Sabretooth run.
Oh, cool!
Yeah,
right.
So it's kind of weird to be back to that, but kind of cool.
Great, cool. Well, that's it, Loonies. Thank you so much. It's been a blast again going through this panel by panel review. You can find us on email on moonknightpodcast@gmail.com, on our website, which is intothenightpodcast.wordpress.com, and from there you can be taken to a lot of our other social media sites such as Facebook and Twitter. We're quite active on our Facebook group, so if you go to facebook.com/groups/intothennight, you can find us there posting up stuff and discussing stuff. Come say hi or drop your thoughts in as well. We're also on Instagram, Tumblr and YouTube. And I think also we're kind of tentatively on iHeartRadio now, Connor. But only on a limited capacity. And having said that, I mean, we're on all good podcast catches. So, you should be able to find us there. And, we'll be back again shortly to cover more of Moon Knight. But, so far we're just devouring and absorbing this one. Any final words there, Connor?
No. Thank you again so much, everyone, for listening, and thank you, Rebecca, for coming on.
Thank you so much again, Rebecca.
It's always a pleasure.
Best of luck with the recording tomorrow as well, and I'll be definitely listening to that as soon as it's dropped as well. So also, Loonies, please catch up with Immortal Iron Fist podcast. It's pretty cool. Having said that, I will have to sign off from all of us. May Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.